Now that I've reached the second rank of the martial path, I'm no longer at the bottom of my peers in the Carter clan, Ethan Carter thought, a determined glint in his eyes. This also means I have the right to participate in the upcoming clan martial meet. The martial path was divided into 9 distinct ranks, each one harder to ascend than the last. The first 3 ranks were known as the power training rank, the stage of martial disciples who trained their bodies and strengthened their blood and chi. This stage was all about laying a strong foundation, because without a solid base, higher realms would crumble like sandcastles under the tide. Although martial disciples were the entry level of cultivation, they were far from ordinary. At the peak of the 3rd rank, one's raw strength could reach 700 to 800 pounds, and those born with exceptional physiques could exceed 1,000 pounds, enough to tear apart tigers or shatter stones with their bare hands. Now that Ethan had stepped into the 2nd rank, his strength was already between 400 to 500 pounds. For an ordinary person, that was an unthinkable amount of power. Against a group of 10 men, Ethan could now fight with confidence, especially if he combined his strength with his refined martial skills. If I can reach the 3rd rank, Ethan mused, my strength will at least double, and my blood and chi will surge like a raging river. That will bring me one step closer to becoming a true martial artist. Beyond the 3rd rank lay the chi accumulation rank, the 4th to 6th levels of the martial path. Only then could one call themselves a true martial disciple. At that stage, a warrior's physique, blood, and power would be enhanced beyond mortal limits. More importantly, they would begin to comprehend martial path inner strength, the mystical energy that allowed techniques to carry force beyond mere muscle, breaking weapons, shaking opponents without touch, or unleashing devastating strikes from a distance. To step into the chi accumulation rank was to step out of the mundane world entirely, to rise above ordinary men and women, and to truly walk the path of the strong. Ethan clenched his fists. Back in Willowbrook Village, he had sworn that he would one day become a true martial disciple. Now, in the Carter clan, that dream felt closer than ever before, almost within his grasp. The upcoming clan martial meet would be his first battlefield, and he had no intention of walking away in defeat. After reaching the 2nd rank of the martial path, Ethan immediately shared the news with his parents. 2nd rank of the martial path? His father, Carter Robert, and his mother, of the Carter clan, were both shocked at first, but quickly let out a sigh of relief. For Ethan to break through to the 2nd rank at his age without any external aid spoke volumes about his talent. It was better than most. Next, you must focus on preparing for the clan martial meet in 2 months, Carter Robert advised, a small smile tugging at his lips. You don't need to win a high ranking, just don't lose too much face. Ethan's mother's expression softened as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. They were already satisfied with what he had achieved and did not hold high expectations. But Ethan's ambitions stretched far beyond that. He was determined not only to become a true martial artist but to one day stand at the very peak of the martial world. Now that I've reached the 2nd rank of the martial path, my standing in the clan has risen. I can finally enter the 1st floor of the martial arts library. The Carter clan's martial arts library housed countless cultivation techniques and manuals, treasures for any aspiring martial artist. With that thought, Ethan immediately made his way toward the martial arts pavilion. Brother Ethan, a young girl's voice rang out, warm with familiarity and tinged with a softness he hadn't heard in a long time. Ethan froze mid-step. From the path ahead, a young man and woman approached. Both were in their early teens. The boy wore royal purple, his eyebrows sharp and his posture even sharper. A cold, piercing aura radiated from him, and Ethan could sense his cultivation, already at the peak of the 3rd rank of the martial path. The surrounding clan disciples lowered their voices in awe. That's Carter Austin, the 3rd-ranked disciple among the clan's outer disciples. Whispers echoed around them, tinged with both fear and respect. Beside Carter Austin stood a young girl dressed in a pure snow-white robe. She looked to be around 13 or 14, her delicate features already showing the promise of beauty. Sister Emily, Ethan greeted, his lips curving into a faintly mocking smile. The girl was Carter Emily, the same one who had followed him from Willowbrook Village into the Carter clan half a year ago. Back in Willowbrook, she had admired and adored him. But once they entered the clan, They drifted apart until they had become little more than strangers. After Emily entered the Carter clan, she quickly leveraged her natural beauty and grace to rise through the ranks. Within just a few months, she had caught the attention of Austin, the third-ranked disciple among the clan's outer members. Under his guidance and with her own determination, Emily had already stepped into the second rank of the martial path half a month ago, a feat that earned her admiration from many, though whispers of her ambition followed her wherever she went. At this moment, Emily stood beside Austin, speaking softly as if discussing something private. Austin's tall, imposing figure was straight as a spear, and his sharp eyes seemed to sweep over the training grounds with an air of ownership. His very presence pressed down on those nearby, making them instinctively lower their gazes. "All right," Austin replied to Emily in his usual curt tone. "But don't take too long." His voice was indifferent, and without even glancing at Ethan, he stepped slightly aside, as though the young man before him wasn't worth the effort of acknowledgement. Emily moved forward, her white robe swaying slightly as she approached Ethan. Stopping just a few paces away, she looked up at him. Her eyes held a mixture of emotions: nostalgia, pity, and a faint disappointment that she couldn't quite hide. "Ethan," she began softly, "you finally reached the second rank of the martial path. I'm glad for you. But," she hesitated, her voice turning serious, "I need to give you some advice. Don't be too headstrong. We both came into the clan from Willowbrook Village, and that means we start from the very bottom. It's hard to compete with those born into the Carter clan, the ones they call heavenly favorites." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you trying to say?" His tone was calm, but the faint chill in his words cut through her gentle manner. A flicker of frustration crossed Emily's face. She bit her lip, as if holding back her irritation. "Ethan, this is the last time I'll tell you this. Go and show your goodwill to Austin. If he supports you, you'll be able to integrate into the Carter clan much faster. You'll avoid unnecessary trouble, and—" "Show my goodwill to him?" Ethan's lips curled into a faint, cold smile. "In my life, I have never bowed my head to anyone." He remembered clearly, Austin's nature was proud to the point of arrogance, and every time their paths crossed, the man had looked at him as though he were nothing more than an insect underfoot. Seeing the iron will in Ethan's eyes, Emily sighed inwardly. She had known him since they were children in Willowbrook Village. She knew his pride was carved into his bones. He would rather shatter than bend. She turned back and returned to Austin's side, whispering something too low for anyone else to hear. "Humph, ungrateful trash," Austin said suddenly, his voice carrying enough for Ethan to catch every word. His cold tone was laced with contempt. "Trash?" Ethan's brows twitched, a spark of irritation flashing in his gaze. Perhaps noticing Ethan's displeasure, Austin paused and smirked faintly. "I hear you were a so-called genius back in Willowbrook Village. But here, in the Carter clan, you're nothing but a clown. At the clan martial meet, I'll defeat you with a single move." Ethan's cold smile widened ever so slightly. "Good," he said simply. "That's exactly what I want. See you at the clan martial meet." Without another glance, he turned sharply and walked toward the martial arts library, his footsteps steady and resolute, the faint echo of his boots carrying the promise of the challenge to come. Ethan didn't want to waste his breath trading insults. Words were cheap. In 2 months, the clan's martial meet would arrive, and when that day came, strength and strength alone would decide who stood tall. As Emily watched Ethan's figure disappear into the distance, her beautiful eyes flickered with a complex light. For a brief moment, she felt a strange sense of unfamiliarity toward him, a subtle change in the way he carried himself. It was an intuition she couldn't explain, yet it unsettled her. "He really thinks too highly of himself?" Austin sneered beside her, his tone dripping with arrogance. To him, Ethan wasn't even worth the effort of being called a rival. In the Carter family's outer circle, there were over 50 disciples who had reached the third rank of the martial path, and Austin was ranked third among them. That position was not earned by accident. Emily lowered her gaze slightly, suppressing a sigh. She had seen Austin's strength firsthand. Even the more talented disciples at the third rank couldn't endure more than a single blow from him. In her mind, Ethan was heading straight toward humiliation. Meanwhile, Ethan's steps carried him steadily toward one of the clan's most guarded and sacred places, the martial arts library. The library was the treasure vault of the Carter clan, containing generations' worth of cultivation techniques and martial manuals. Its entrance was imposing, guarded by seasoned elders whose presence alone could deter most from even approaching without permission. As he stepped inside, a tall, white-robed elder glanced at the badge pinned to Ethan's chest. His sharp eyes lingered for a moment, and his brows knit slightly. "Branch disciple?" he remarked in a neutral tone. "Greetings, elder," Ethan said respectfully, lowering his head slightly. He was fully aware of the elder's strength, and that respect was not merely courtesy, but survival instinct. Through the unique perception of his left eye, Ethan could sense an overwhelming force within the elder's body. A fierce, crimson aura pulsed from the man's flesh and blood, flowing like molten steel through his meridians. It was a power that could leap from his body at will, striking down an enemy from a distance, even shattering metal as easily as breaking twigs. Ethan knew immediately this was inner strength, refined to a frightening degree. The elder's control over it was flawless, his presence as steady and dangerous as a drawn bow ready to loose an arrow. Even if Ethan multiplied his current strength by 100, he wouldn't last a heartbeat in battle against him. Only true martial artists of the 4th rank or higher could cultivate inner strength. Martial disciples like Ethan or Zane Carter, for that matter, were far from reaching that level. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped forward. "Elder, I wish to enter the 2nd floor, Moonstone Pavilion," he stated clearly. The white-robed elder studied him for a moment before speaking. "It's not bad for you to have reached the 2nd rank of the martial path at the age of 14, he said, his voice calm yet carrying weight. "However, before becoming an inner disciple, both branch disciples and main disciples are subject to different privileges when entering the martial arts library." Hearing this, Ethan was briefly taken aback. Then, remembering the new rules recently imposed by the Carter clan, he understood perfectly. "Elder, please speak." Ethan understood that before he had absolute strength, he had no right to bargain. His tone was steady, but deep down, he knew the rules of the Carter clan were never in his favor. The white-robed elder said expressionlessly, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Disciples of the 2nd rank of the martial path may only enter the 1st floor of the martial arts library. On the 1st floor, there are many low-ranked martial arts, and a few middle-ranked ones. The main clan disciples can choose at most 2 middle-ranked martial arts or 4 low-ranked martial arts and take them out to practice for 2 months. As for branch clan disciples, they may choose only 1 middle-ranked martial art or 2 low-ranked martial arts, and their training time is limited to 1 month. Hearing the rules, Ethan's brows tensed for a brief moment. He took a slow breath and forced himself to remain calm. "I understand," he said. The disparity was sharp and undeniable. Whether it was the number of martial arts available or the time to train, branch disciples like him were placed at a clear disadvantage. The main clan's resources were nearly 3 times as abundant. It was a gap that could crush the ambitions of anyone who wasn't determined enough to fight against it. "Good," the elder replied curtly, his eyes unmoving. "You may enter now. Your training selection time is half an hour. Choose wisely." With a respectful nod, Ethan stepped past the threshold. The air inside the Moonstone Pavilion was cool and heavy with the scent of ancient parchment and oiled weapon racks. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched into the distance, each filled with tightly bound scrolls and thick manuals. Faint runes glowed on some of the shelves, sealing away the more powerful techniques from unworthy hands. For years, Ethan had dreamed of this moment, of walking through these quiet aisles, surrounded by the knowledge and skills of generations of warriors. He knew his time was short, but his left eye shimmered faintly as he scanned the shelves, absorbing every symbol, every title, every subtle aura coming from the martial techniques. This was the place where futures were forged or broken, and Ethan had no intention of leaving with anything less than the very best he could claim.